All right, Randa, can we have the first slide up? All righty, AUW California members, who is ready to rumble? I can't see your hands, but I know they're all up because I know you have incredible enthusiasm out there. And I know that by just looking at these numbers. We have 115, excuse me, 115 members who have signed up from 48 branches. That's almost 50% of our branches are represented in Lobby Week. That's really exciting to me and to Sue and to Kathy. And I know we're ready to rumble and we're ready to help you in any way that we can to make this experience fun and exciting and informative for all of you. So don't hesitate to ask your questions tonight or at any time prior to your meetings. That's what we're here for. So who are we? I am Sue Miller, and I are the co-chairs for the AUW California Public Policy Committee. I also serve on the AUW California Board of Directors. I'm now in my second term, and I'm also Public Policy Director for my branch, which is Carlsbad, Oceanside Vista down in North San Diego County. I'm a retired attorney and public policy is in my veins. So I am just more than excited to be here and to welcome all of you to our training session. And I'm going to ask Sue at this time if she will just tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll hear from Kathleen Van Osten. Go, Sue.
So I'm Sue Miller, also chair of my branch Public Policy Committee. That's Roseville, South Placer. I've been involved in public policy with AUW for at least 12 years. I've been a board member in the past. I was vice president for 1 year. And I continue this work because I think it's just so very important that we women who are educated can support legislation that benefits all women and children in California.
Thanks, Sue. Kathy?
Hi there, I'm Kathy Van Osten, MVM Strategy Group, and I represent all of you and all of your fellow branch members up here in Sacramento. So I am the one responsible for, we're putting together all of the meetings for next week. So you can either love me or hate me. I'm sure there's going to be a mix of both. But I'm so proud to represent AAUW California. It has been such a pleasure to work on such fantastic issues. I don't always have that luxury of working on pay equity and access to education and improving people's lives through economic means. And it's just been an absolute pleasure to be part of this and be part of your representing your organization and being able to advocate for things that I also care very much about here in Sacramento. So thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Kathy. We'll hear from both Sue and Kathy a little bit later as we go through our presentation tonight. Can I have the next slide, please? All right, I'm going to talk first of all about what we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to be talking about the purpose and the scope of Lobby Week. Then we'll talk in more detail about how to conduct your meetings. Then we'll talk at quite depth about our bills. This is the crux. Of course, we want you to know what to expect in your meetings and all of the logistics and so forth around those meetings. But the real crux of this training is to make sure you all really understand our bills, what they're about, because that's what you're here for. We're asking you to be our mouthpieces on behalf of AUW California to go before the legislators and to ask them to support our bills. And in order to get them enthusiastic about doing that, we need to make sure we're able to ably communicate to them what the bills are about. So that's what we're really going to spend quite a bit of time on, is talking about those bills and being prepared to answer any questions that you might have. We do not want anyone to feel intimidated, like they don't understand the bill or they can't answer questions. This is what we're here for tonight, is to answer any questions that you have about those. And then finally, we'll talk about the logistics of setting everything up. But before we get to that, I just want to take a few minutes. I want to say a few words about our format this year, because we've had some questions, and I know it's very different and sometimes change, and different things take a little bit of getting used to. We came up with this brainchild last September when we were thinking about lobby day time approaching. And at that time, COVID was kind of on its way out. It was looking pretty good statewide. A lot of the mandates were being lifted and the numbers were going down nicely. And so we took a look at that. And then we talked about the fact that, one of our, in our committee, one of the things that we've long been wanting to spend quite a bit of time on is encouraging members to spend more time doing legislative advocacy at the local level, getting out and visiting their legislators in their offices and talking with them about AUW's issues and priorities. And so we kind of put those two things together, and we said, we have a whole week when legislators will be home in their districts, so that the third thing there is that it saves us a lot of money, right? Because you don't have to travel to Sacramento. They're in their districts, so members could get used to knowing where their offices were and feel comfortable going to their offices and talking about them. And of course, with COVID gone, we could do all of that in person. So that was really how Lobby Day got turned into Lobby Week. We wanted to get them while they're home during spring break. So the response, I'm sad to say, has been a little bit disappointing. We are only at about half of the numbers of legislators who wanted to respond or who want to participate. And we were kind of, not knowing how that would go. We didn't know if giving them a whole week to choose dates from might encourage more to participate, or if the fact that it was spring break, maybe a lot of them are going on vacation with their families. And so we might actually lose numbers. So we're still a little bit lower in terms of response from our legislators than we would like to be, but I want you all to take heart. Don't get discouraged by that. If we haven't given you an assigned meeting yet, it doesn't mean it won't happen. Staff and ledge offices are notorious for, I don't want to say dragging their feet, but they have a lot going on, right? So we're not always at the top of their priority list when it comes to responding to requests. And so a lot of times these meeting confirmations come trickling in a little bit at a time. Sometimes right up to the day before the meeting, somebody will say, oh, his or her time freed up and we can go ahead and do the meeting. So don't be discouraged, hang in there. We will, hopefully it's our goal to get everybody into an office, and that's what we're going to be continuing to work for right up to next week. I also want to say a word about what we won't cover tonight. I had an opportunity to look through some of the questions when you did your surveys. There was an opportunity for you to ask questions ahead of time, things that you would like to have us cover. A lot of the questions that I went through were asking things about making suggestions. Some of them were making suggestions about what kind of bills we ought to have, and questions about why aren't we covering such and such and such and such. That's not really the purpose of this training. This training is geared toward making sure you all know what is expected to you and you have the tools you need to carry that out next week during Lobby Week. If you have any other questions outside of that perimeter, we can always talk about that later. Sue and I are always available for your emails about any questions or suggestions you have for public policy, but that is not what we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay, so I just want to kind of get that out of the way. All right, let's get started. Next slide, please. So what is Lobby Week all about? Several things. First of all, it's a great opportunity for you all as members to acquaint yourselves with your legislators. On the other side, it's a great opportunity to acquaint your legislators with AAUW, who we are as an organization, what we do here in California, and specifically your branch, who you are in their community. That's what they care about. What are you doing for their constituents in their community? And this is your opportunity to brag about how AAUW interacts with their constituents. And then finally, of course, it's your opportunity to advocate on behalf of AUW California's top 3 priority bills for 22-23. And we're going to be talking about those a little bit later. Next slide, please. Before we start talking about the actual meetings, I just want to mention that we will be having a kickoff Zoom meeting next Monday. That's the first day of lobby week. That's April 11th from 9 to 9:30. And we will have a little intro section from Kathy from KVO, as we call her. She will get the ball rolling and get everybody excited to get out there. And then she will be introducing our guest speaker, our keynote speaker, who is our state controller, Betty Yee. This is a big deal. She is a longtime Sacramento politician and been around for quite a while. This is an elected office. And we're really, really thrilled to have her. She's a great speaker, and she's going to talk to us about the state of California's economy and where do we go from here. And then we'll end with a question and answer session with Kathy. So if you, over the weekend, you think of those last minute questions that you forgot to ask tonight, we'll make sure everything is answered for you at that session. Okay, next slide, please. All right, let's talk about the meetings themselves. So I want to just talk a little bit here about the structure. Some of you who weren't with us last year, this may not be familiar to you. I've been getting a lot of questions from people who are a little bit confused about a couple of things. So this is a great opportunity to clear some of that up. There are lots of, we have several situations where we have a lot of members who all live in the same district, and they're either from the same branch because that's a really active, politically active branch, or because it's a big area and it encompasses a lot of different branches. So our goal, the optimum, is to keep the visitors, you guys, the optimum is 4 members. The maximum really is 6. So we try to divide everybody up so that we reach those numbers. That's what's really key. We don't want you overwhelming the legislator with 15 people showing up for Senator Laird, as we have signed up. That would be kind of ridiculous and too many that could be accommodated. Plus, 4 people get to speak, the one who's making the introductions and each of the people who have a bill to talk about. So the other 12 of you are just sitting there on the screen, a face on a screen. So we really tried to portion everything up so that it was a reasonable sized group, and everybody in that group would have an opportunity to say something and to speak to their legislators. So that's what's behind the team concept. We need a person who's a point person. We've asked one person on each team to be a team leader. If you're the only person from your district and you don't have team members, then you will be acting in the same capacity as a team leader. And so what we need our team leader to do is be a point person for me to communicate things with and through, and for them to pass on to all their team members. And for the team member will have the responsibility of setting up the Zoom meeting. Last year, if you remember, we did all of this in one day, and Kathy's office, KVO's office, did all the logistics, and all the meetings were set up from her computer. We're not doing that this year. Each team will be responsible for setting up the meeting with their legislative office. So that will primarily fall on the team leader unless you have designated someone else in your group to do it. Okay, so that's the sort of what's behind the team concept. Your team leader will be getting all the materials from me. I'll be asking her to pass them on to you. If you don't hear from your team leader, if you haven't already, and you don't by the end of tomorrow after this meeting, after this training, please let me know if you do not hear from your team leader and you haven't seen the materials, because I sent everything to all the team leaders already. Okay, so what happens in the actual meeting then is, once it's set up, is the meeting itself should not last more than 20 minutes. That's what most of our legislators ask for and expect. That's about all they will give us. So make sure you time yourself accordingly. The team leader will make the introductions, present an overview of AUW and AUW California. And if the team leaders branches in their district, then the team leader will talk about her specific branch. In this case, all of you so far are in district. We don't have anybody presenting out of district, so that should be easy. Each member will give, if there are more than one branch represented in that district, then other members from other branches will also have an opportunity to talk a little bit about their branch. Members will explain their assigned bill, and they will close by asking for a commitment of support. Don't be discouraged if you don't get this. Most legislators will not give that vow. They want to see the whole legislative session before they're ready to make any commitments, but we always ask. And then the team leader will thank the legislator or staff and make sure you get contact info for follow-up. So that's just an overview of how the meeting is conducted and what it will look like. We go to the next slide, please. Next slide. So I put together a script for you. You do not have to follow it. I did it for your convenience just to help you out. There are certain things that have to be covered, but it can be in your words, not mine. This is just here to help you. As has been said, you'll get these slides after the training is over, and you can print off any of these to take with you that you think might be helpful to you. I'm not going to go through all of this again. It's just the first 2 pages here, first 2 slides are for the team leader. You will make the presentation on, you know, let them know that you're here on behalf of AUW California. And I want to emphasize this. You're not there representing yourself. You're not there representing your branch. You are there representing AAUW California. We want to make sure that you say that, and that's known to the legislator. You thank them for letting us talk to you. Then you introduce your other colleagues if you have other members of your team there. And then we ask you just to give them a little bit of overview of AUW. But before you do that, it's a really good idea to ask them, are you familiar with our organization? Many of our legislators are, thanks to KVO and the work that we've been doing on the public policy team. We are getting a really fabulous reputation with our legislators in Sacramento. Many of them do know us. Many of them will be repeats from last year. And if they didn't know us then, they do now. So you don't need to, if they say, oh yeah, I'm very familiar with your organization, you don't need to spend a lot of time on this. So ask that question first before you launch into a big overview and intro. I just put in here a couple of highlights that you might want to mention, come up with whatever else you want, but just keep in your time. Remember your time. You should have spent about no more than 5 minutes on the intros and the branches, and then make sure you have at least 5 minutes for each of your 5 bills, and then time to wrap up. So kind of think about your time in those in that way. Next slide, please. And then if all of the members are from the same branch and the branch is in district, which it is, then the team leader can just then give an overview of your particular branch. And one of the things you want to do here is what I have at the end of this first paragraph. I'd like to tell you a little about the things our branch is doing for you and the members of your community, and then highlight some of the, if you've tabled at an event, or if you've had a particular success with a program, especially something like Tech Trek, you want to talk about that. You want to talk about how many girls in the schools in their district have been helped by AUW, those kinds of things you want to highlight. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the next one because, as I said, right now we don't have anybody from outside of the district. And then you just, when you finish, you wrap that section up by saying, can I answer any questions for you about AUW? Give them an opportunity to get more info if they feel like they need it. Then that's your segue into to the legislative agenda. So you say every year we set a legislative agenda of about 30 bills that we're supporting. That's true for this year. We've chosen our top 3 that we want to talk to you about. So then you turn it over to your colleagues if you have more members on your team, and go ahead with the next slide, please. And then it's time for the team members. So as it comes to you, now what happens is in preparation leading up to this, your team members should have gotten a hold of you. You should all be on some kind of a chat, emailing back and forth form, and you'll have to decide as a team who's going to handle what. We don't really care. It's completely up to your team. You can have one person represent on all 3 bills. We'd prefer if everybody took a role and you divvied it up and each person took 1 bill, but however you guys want to do it. So if it's your turn to present a bill, just before you present it, you might, of course, you introduce yourself. You might want to talk about your branch. If it's a different branch than the team leaders, you don't need to go and spend any more time on that if it's the same one. Then you make your presentation on your bill, and you can refer to your talking points and make sure you have those with you. They're in this slide presentation. Again, you can print that out, have that with you. Feel free to refer to your talking points. You don't have to memorize anything. And then you ask them if they have any questions about the bill. Now, this is important. If you can answer, if they ask you a question and you know the answer, go ahead and answer it. But if you're not sure, if you have any doubts or it just isn't clicking with you, it is perfectly fine to say, I'm not sure about that. Someone from our state public policy team will get back to you with an answer right away, and we will, but we need that information from you. So make sure they know that even though you may not have the answer right at your fingertips, you'll pass it on to our team and someone will answer their question. Then you ask if you have the support and note it whether you do or not. Okay, next. And then after you've gone through all three bills, just a quick closing, again, back to the team leader. Thank you for your time and attention. And then what we need is, well, two things. All of the team leaders have been given a copy of our report back form. Make sure you take that with you. Make notes on it and get all of this stuff down at the time that it's happening. So you want to ask them, if you're talking with the legislator, some of you will be, is there someone in your office who you can give me as a contact? I want to send some follow-up responses, or you might want to send them brochures from your branch on Tech Trek, any materials that they have asked for that you think could be helpful. You need a point person to be able to send that to, so you need contact information. If you're already meeting with a staffer, just make sure you have their information. You ask them, are you the point person? And then make sure you get all of their information down. Okay. All right, before I turn this over to Kathy, she's going to talk to you about some do's and don'ts. And don't forget about your meetings. I've gone over a lot on the team concept and how the meetings are conducted. I'm going to go ahead and briefly open it up to questions just about what I've just covered, nothing else. So do we have any questions about any of that?
Yes, Kathy, there were several questions about setting up the meeting and communication with the legislatures. Can you clarify a little bit exactly what their responsibilities, the team leaders, will be?
I will, thank you. So I sent you all the form, the spreadsheet that KVO has put together. That has all the contact information on there. It has the name of your point person for this purpose, as well as their email address. And I think it might have phone numbers, I'm not sure, but at least our email address. As soon as possible, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you do it first thing tomorrow. Should not be any later than tomorrow. Go ahead and contact them. Introduce yourself. They're expecting you. They've already talked to Kathy, and just tell them who you are, what branch you're from, and that you are the person who will be setting up the Zoom meeting, and get the information from them. Who do I send that to? What's the email address? Who do I send the Zoom link to? And make sure you make a note of all that. Then when you're ready for your meeting, you should have all of that in front of you. Does that answer whoever's question?
There were several in that. I think that clarifies a number of questions that have been posted. The other has to do specifically with the emailing and our times already established. How much has already been put into place?
The only thing that's been put into place is Kathy's contact with the office to say that who AEW is, what we're doing, Lobby Week, and that someone from the branches that are in their district, someone from that branch will be contacting them. So that's all they know. They haven't been sent any materials.
Okay, and then the other, it has to do with, are there any drop pieces that they can email? I mean, is there some verbiage or a template that they can use?
There's a template for themselves, and that's all in this slide presentation. There's nothing for them to give. If I understand the question, there's nothing that we're providing for them to give to the legislators, but we do have fact sheets on all three of our bills. So if any of your legislators, if any of your contacts say, I'd really like it if I could get more information about this bill, then tell them that we will send them the fact sheet. After you get the contact information, just let us know, team leader, put that in your report back form that they would like a fact sheet on such and such bill or all three of them. And then once we get those report backs back, that will cue us to send them that material.
Okay, and one final question. Can they ask permission to take a photo for social media?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things you're going to see in the do's or the don't forgets will be, don't forget to take a screenshot, because we want to post all those on our website. So yes, you do want to get permission, but we hope that you will get pictures.
All right, thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I'm going to turn over to KBO, and she'll go over the next couple of slides with you.
Let's see if I don't know if I'm visible yet, but I'll go ahead. One thing I do want to clarify with respect to the meetings, meetings have been set for dates and times. So those are in the chart, I believe, that Kathy has sent you. So the timing, the meetings have been set. What needs to happen is a Zoom meeting link needs to be sent to the contact. And if you'll look at the spreadsheet, you'll see, I believe it's item, looks like column I. Column I has the time and the place, the time and the date and the time of the meeting. And then who you'll be meeting with is next to that. We are getting a lot of staff, unfortunately. We have a lot of members who are traveling. Unfortunately, when I worked in the building, there were not as many members that traveled during the break, but so be it. That's what seems to be happening. And then to the right of that is whether you're meeting with a member or staff, the member staff contact, that is the name, that is the email that you will send the Zoom invite link to. So if anybody has difficulty with Zoom, or you're not quite sure how to do that, let Kathy know, and I can maybe walk folks through a quick summary tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, whatever works for folks. So I just wanted to clarify that point. You don't need to set the times. I'm going to continue setting up meetings since we do have the week. I'm still getting responses trickling in, so I'll continue to work to set up meetings for as long as we can last next week. So if things change with schedules, please let Kathy know, and I can factor that in. So just some do's and don'ts. Do take time to read through the talking points. No member or staff will expect you to really know the bills verbatim. They're not going to expect you to know the political nuances or intricacies that are involved. So, I wouldn't, please don't feel uncomfortable as you're talking about the bills. You've got a summary. I think that they say everything that we need to say, everything that we're backing. Again, if you do get asked a question and you don't know the answer, just please take notes, and we will definitely get back to the offices with a response. So read through the bullet points. Again, if you have questions or you want to know a little bit more, ask Kathy to reach out to me, and we can I'm happy to share more information if you would like it. There's always more information. And most of you will be on Zoom. I'm actually, frankly, still surprised a lot of meetings are getting set up by Zoom. We do have a few in-person meetings. which I'm very happy about. They are with the legislators, so I'm pleased about that. And when you do walk into the legislator's office, they're going to do everything they can to make you feel comfortable. They are used to meeting people who might be a little intimidated or not intimidated, what have you. But they will do they really do work to try to make you feel comfortable. And they are always happy to see you because they want to know where their constituents are on bills that are coming before them for their vote. Again, as the note says, please make sure your Zoom is working. You might want to hop on a few minutes ahead of time. Sometimes I've found that you get bounced out of the room and you don't really quite, you have to get out and then get back in. So just give yourself a little bit of time to a few minutes before the meeting to hop in. Next slide, please. So yes, they are just people. I have been working in the Capitol. I think I saw somewhere, I just want to answer a quick question. Somebody had asked, what is MVM Strategy Group? I just want to answer that quickly while I'm thinking about it. MVM Strategy Group is my lobbying firm. I have a partner, Rand Martin. We both have been working in or around the Capitol since about 1985. We love public policy, we love advocacy. So we are a small but mighty firm. We have a very strong reputation for credibility and integrity. So it's nice to have your own business. I'm sure there's a lot of entrepreneurs on the line here. And I really do love the advocacy, and especially the issues that you guys care about. It's really issues that bring home, for me, and I really do enjoy talking about the issues. When you do sit down, make sure that the legislator or staff, whether you're in the office or on Zoom, let them know if you're a constituent. That's always very important to them. What I am trying to do is give them your names prior to the meeting so that they know, who to expect. So if, just for your information, they should be aware that many of you are their constituents. So that work will have been done, but be sure to raise your hand and just say, just want to let you know I live in Healdsburg, or I live in Sacramento, or what have you, so that they get a sense of where you're from. You might want to think about practicing a little bit, go through your bills, try to talk through your bill points. You really don't want to take more than a few minutes to discuss each bill because you want to be able to answer questions afterwards. So, give yourself a few minutes to talk through the bullet points, see if there's any questions and answers, and then move on to the next bill. They are used to people reading from notes, so don't feel uncomfortable if you are more comfortable reading from a script or from the talking points. That's what they're there for. So that is not something that they would take offense at. Really, really important. Never guess. If you're asked a question and you're not sure what the answer is, or you think you know what the answer is, but you're not quite sure, let them know that you'd like to get back to them on that. They will, it establishes credibility that you care about making sure that they have the right information. This is something that, as a lobbyist, I do, not daily, but many times. A legislator will ask a question and I'll just say, I'll get back to you as soon as possible on that. And I do try to get back to them that day so that it's fresh in their minds. But sometimes that's not always possible. Once you've gone through your bill, there are 3 different bills. One is a little bit more of a sensitive subject, which we'll talk about in a minute. Do just when you finish presenting on the bill, again, ask the member or the staff, do you have any questions for me? Are you familiar with this? They may or may not be, so don't be offended if they're not. A lot of times they don't see things until it gets to the floor for a vote. Next slide, please. Super important, and this just happened to me on Tuesday morning. I had a meeting with a nonprofit organization and a senator and a scientist from UC Davis who were talking about a program that she has developed. And she started off her presentation with, I've seen you at a number of fundraisers, and my heart sank, because that is usually an indicator that the legislator is going to shut down the meeting immediately. It should make them very uncomfortable, and a lot of legislators will just say, we can't talk about that, or some will just end the meeting. So, if you've been a campaign contributor and they're not aware of it, all I can tell you is maybe follow up at another time, and just, I do not ever link a contribution with a bill. It is illegal. So I don't think any of us want to be wearing stripes or orange. Do be on time. Most staff meetings will start on time. They're usually very good about being on time, and especially next week, because they won't have hearings and there won't be as much going on because it is spring break. They will likely be on time. So please do be on time. It's very frustrating, for them to have to wait for a few minutes. Their time is unbelievably crammed. That's all I can say. I worked in the Capitol for 13 years, and it is relentless. If you see the legislator or staff start to speak or ask a question, just take a step back and pause and offer them to please go ahead. It is a pet peeve of mine to be interrupted, but two, also not to be able to ask a question. And when legislators speak, oftentimes maybe they're not asking a question. They may be giving you information, and that's why you're there in the meeting, is to try to get as much information as you can. You're giving information, but you're also going to be watching them and hoping to get information like, oh yes, I'm familiar with that bill. I think there's a hiccup here, but I think they're going to address it. They may give you some information which is really valuable to us to pass on, and to factor into our strategy, I should say. Don't ramble. I feel like I'm rambling, but don't ramble. And please, don't have lunch. Don't have your drinks or coffee or sodas. We really want to make sure that they have your full attention and they feel like they're getting your full attention. So I think that's an important little note to reference. Next slide. So yes, as we talked about earlier, or as Kathy talked about, do take a picture of the screen, take a screenshot if you can. When we say be flexible, I can't emphasize enough. I have meetings change. Literally, I have taken a CEO into a senator's district. He flew out from Michigan to meet with her, and we drove out from LAX about an hour and a half to get to her office, and she wasn't even there. And they hadn't called, they hadn't let us know. We ended up meeting with staff, which was not optimal, given that I had the CEO of a very large company. So things do change. Most members are very conscientious, especially if they're meeting with constituents. Staff are as well. We will likely have some changes. I've already had one staff come back out and try to, we've had to move something just a half an hour, but Sometimes something pops up and they have to deal with it, and they'll either delay, they'll contact me, we'll reschedule another time. It is just day in, day out. That is our lives up here. For those of you who feel you don't have control over your schedules next week, I sympathize, because I rarely have time and major control over my schedule, because if I get called into a meeting by a member, that's where I've got to go no matter what's going on. Do get contact information. Again, ask for, if it's staff that you're meeting with, make sure that you note, and it'll be on the chart again that Kathy sent out to you. Do follow up with information. I'm sorry, if you have materials that you're going to send, you can do so through that contact. Again, if there's follow-up questions that need to be answered, Kathy will let me know. I will do the research and I will get back to staff, so you don't have to worry about it. But I'll make sure. But do get contact info for where they do want follow-up information sent, whether it's with the member or staff. Next slide. Okay, questions.
So I actually, Kathy, I'm going to ask if we can hold off on questions, because we're running a little bit short on time. I want to make sure we have enough time to cover our bills adequately. So we're going to have a Q&A at the end, and I'm going to ask everyone, if you have any specific questions about what Kathy's presented, if you can hold them until the end of the session. Okay. And with that, we're going to go ahead and talk about our bills. And I just want to mention, as we said, we have our 3 top priority bills that have been selected by the Public Policy Committee. We have selected one piece of legislation from each of our 3 pillars. We have an economic security bill, that's Assembly Bill 92. We have one from our access to education pillar, and that is AB 1968, sorry. And then we have one from our social justice pillar, and that is AB 1666. So Kathy and Sue are going to give you the lowdown on these bills. And I just want to mention it is 7:49 and we're supposed to be through at 7:45. So keep that in mind, ladies, as you present your material. Thank you. And at this time, Kathy, back to you to talk about AB 92.
Okay, I'll try to talk faster this time and be less rambling. So AB 92 is what we call a 2-year bill. We are a co-sponsor along with a number of other groups, including the Child Care Network and Parent Voices. There are a number of members of Stronger California that are engaged in this bill. And we were very excited last year. We were able to get $65 million in the budget to waive family fees for childcare for 1 year. We had wanted until 23, but we were able to get it for 1 year, which is still an accomplishment. So we held the bill in appropriations over on the Senate side, and we are working again this year to try to get funding for family fees through the end of September of 2024. So family fees, very quickly, for subsidized childcare, which is paid for by the federal and state government, families are required to pay a portion of that childcare. So it starts with a certain percentage. If you get an increase in salary, your rate goes up, and it keeps going up the more that you get paid. So as people are trying to catch up, as you can imagine, it's harder to do because their fees go up. So what we are looking to do, we waived family fees, and what this did during the pandemic especially was it immediately put money in families' pockets for low-income families that have children in childcare. It put money directly in their pockets because they didn't have to pay the providers. The state paid the providers to make sure that they were whole, so that they didn't suffer any economic loss as well. So with this bill, we're looking to, again, extend the family fee waiver for another 2 years. and really give families a chance to catch up. The federal government did put a cap on family fees, so we are changing the bill a little bit, and I'll just leave it, suffice it to say, we are going to follow we'll conform to the federal statute, which has a much lower threshold for the size of family fees that families making 75% or below median income would have to pay. So again, I think this is a tremendous bill for childcare. It allows families to keep their children in childcare, helps them to keep their jobs, and it helps them to rise out of poverty, which is one of our top goals here. So I will leave it at that and answer any questions when there's time to answer questions.
All right. The next, are you through with 92? Kathy?
I am, yes.
Okay. Next slide. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sue, and she'll talk about the next two bills.
This bill is one that really came about by what has happened in Texas. And I'm sure many of you know that in the wonderful state of Texas, the legislature passed a bill that would enable anybody, any citizen, to file a civil lawsuit against a woman, against the doctor, against somebody that even drove the woman to get an abortion. And this is just beyond ridiculous. Other states have been passing bills that are equally difficult. What we see happening is that this is going to probably drive people to look out of state if they wish to pursue having an abortion. California law does permit abortion. It is in the Constitution. What will be happening if this bill is passed, and we certainly hope it will be, is that it will make protections in California against anybody coming to California to have an abortion, anyone helping the person, anyone providing abortions. This would be a doctor in California or a nurse practitioner, and it would provide protections against liability. Next slide, please. There is something in our country that is generally a policy, and that is that one state recognizes another state's laws and tries to stay away from from causing a problem with another state. But this bill would change that, at least it applies to abortions. California will not apply a law from another state that severely restricts abortions, such as the Texas law, to any case heard in a California court, and it wouldn't allow the enforcement of satisfying a civil judgment received from another state. We think this is a very important bill because we know that people will be seeking abortions in California. So when you speak with your legislator, please do say, will you vote? We encourage you to vote aye on this bill. Next slide, please. As we looked at bills that we wanted to support when our Public Policy Committee met, as was noted earlier, both the two bills we've just talked about are bills we are co-sponsoring. But when our committee met, this jumped to the top of our interest because AAUW certainly supports Title IX. It supports the protections that by law are in place to assure that sexual assaults and violence are addressed in policies at our universities. But what we have seen is that there's a lack of uniformity about how the information is presented. And when the bill that this author was putting together, he stated in that some higher education websites host information that is virtually inaccessible, like on a telephone, or just plain confusing to look at. So this bill would require the trustees of the CSU system and request the regents of the UC system to develop standards for the content and presentation of information. The goal here is to establish commonality among all the universities and provide in-depth information about how a survivor could immediately address the situation that's taking place. So the key points in the law: reporting a sexual assault to others, including law enforcement agencies, and services that are offered by each campus when there is an assault that occurs there, covering how to get proper medical attention following a sexual assault, and also how to collect and preserve evidence that is related to the sexual assault. And very importantly, this bill would also require the development of a model internet website that would incorporate all the content standards that I just mentioned. Also important, and this came out of a hearing in the Education Committee of the bill, the author has agreed to include Title IX offices in discussions about the content that should be in the bill. And of course, we are very strongly in support of Title IX. And also, the author is going to consider amending the bill to require the community colleges to also conform to the provisions of this legislation. Again, please ask your assembly member or senator to vote aye on Assembly Bill 1968.
All right, thank you so much, Sue and Kathy. I'm in the middle of live answering a question here from Jenny Redfern about AB 1666. I'm just going to go ahead and read the question and the answer so that I could get to the wrap up of this. The question is, would AB 1666 provide protection not only to out-of-state women seeking abortion, but also to out-of-state people, helping them while in California? The answer is mostly that it depends. If the person from out of state engaged in an act within the state of California, within our state boundaries, that assisted the woman in getting an abortion, then yes, it would protect that person. I was typing an example where it wouldn't cover them. Let's say that somebody from Texas provided transportation, but they dropped her off in Arizona and then they went back and that person never set foot in California, then this bill would not protect them. What it does in essence is it precludes any suit for judgment being pressed in a California court against any action that was taken in the state of California to enable a woman to get an abortion. So Jenny, I hope that answers your question. All right, thank you both for your help in make sure everyone understands these important bills. And if we could have the next slide, which I think is just our question slide. So at this time, we will open it up for any questions about anything that the three of us have presented. And then I'll do a little wrap up.
So Kathy, there's a few more that have to do, but the provider would receive the full fee. Is that correct?
That they would receive what?
The full fee.
The full fee. That really doesn't have anything to do with this bill. This bill is only about the Texas law, and if other states adopt the same kind of laws, which say that a civil action can be brought against a person who aids and abets a woman in getting an abortion. So if that woman comes from another state into California to have her abortion, this bill protects her from being civilly sued and any persons who helped her get the abortion. The fee arrangement between her and the physician who does the abortion here in California is not the subject of this bill. It's a whole completely different issue.
There were some previous questions about how much knowledge the teams would have as to the position the legislatures have on the bills that are being presented to them. Will they have some understanding of whether they understand AUW's values? Do they, will the team leads know where the legislators stand on the different bills before?
No, that's actually one of the reasons, that's one of the purposes of Lobby Week, is to send our members out there as our eyes and ears to collect that information. As Kathy said before, it's just what we get back is just as important as what we give them. A lot of these legislators don't even know some of these bills exist. When the session starts, there's like 1,000 bills that get introduced, and we're just picking out 3 little needles out of that haystack and asking them to zero in on it. And so they're looking to us to give them that kind of information. You might be talking to someone who's on a committee that the bill has already been heard in. We could give you that information that might be helpful, but for the most part, you can assume that the legislators you're talking to won't know anything about these bills yet. Kathy, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
I don't think so. I think you covered it. Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add.
And as far as the first part of your question was, will they know anything about AUW? They know nothing about nothing. They know that we're coming, and that's your jobs, is to educate them about AUW and educate them about our bills and find out what their thoughts are about our bills. That's really what it comes down to.
I might make a comment, Kathy.
Uh-huh.
If you want to learn any more about a bill in depth, if you want to find out what committee's actions have been on that bill, there's a very good resource that you can tap. It is the state website. It starts out in this way. If you want to write down the actual entry you'd make to get there, leginfo, one word, .legislature.ca.gov. And when you go to that, it immediately lets you enter the number of a bill, and then you can get a lot of information about that bill. You might want to do that before you meet with your legislator.
And Kathy, did you have something else you wanted to say?
The only thing I wanted to say is some members may be familiar, again, if they sit on a committee that's heard the bill. For example, AB 1666 has been heard in the Assembly Judiciary Committee and the Senate, the Assembly Health Committee. Actually, just on Tuesday, I testified. And so that will next go to Appropriations Committee. So again, members may be aware that they may not have any clue what these bills do. And in particular, if you've got an assembly bill, somebody pointed this out in the chat that I noticed, if you've got an assembly bill that's hasn't made it over to the Senate yet, senators may not be aware of it, and vice versa. So just walk in assuming that they don't know. And if they start nodding their head and saying, oh, yes, I'm aware, then you can maybe pivot in your dialogue to again, garner some information from them on where they might stand on the bill and so forth.
Thanks, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? No other questions? Jenny Hatfield, if you're still out there, you had a question and I thought I was answering it, but I actually deleted your question. I don't remember what it was. If you still want to ask that, go ahead. Nope. Okay, then I'm going to assume that all of you are very comfortable with these bills and you know everything there is to know, and yay for that. And we've done our job. Can I have the next slide? Just a couple things about logistics as I some of this, let's see, I might have already gone through. Yeah, I've already talked about this. The only thing on this slide is it's got Kathy's contact information. If you have any questions about the legislators, any of your meetings, any of the logistics, call Kathy. She would be happy to chat with you and help you get what you need. And last slide. Okay, this is really critical. After the meeting, again, you've all the team leaders and anyone who is representing a district on their own, you've been given the follow-up form. These are critical for us to have. It gives us a summary of how the meeting went. It lets us know if there's any follow-up information that has to be done. It lets Kathy know things like, okay, these particular representatives didn't like the bill, or they had questions about the bill, or they'd like some follow-up, or whatever it is. We really need that feedback. So please make sure you take that form with you so you can put the information down as it happens. And then just as soon as you get a chance, type it up and send it to me. I hope within the following week, I would really appreciate it. And I just saw Jenny's question. She says, does staff know, nope, I'm not seeing it there. Does staff know about what bill? I think it was, will the staff know what bills we're going to be talking about ahead of time? The answer to that is no. We have not provided them with any information beyond this. You have a group that's going to be coming talking to you, and the leader of that group will be contacting you. That's as much as they know. And with that, we're done. And if there are no more questions, then we can wrap this up. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you giving us your time tonight to go through this training. And I want to thank my co-presenters, Kathy and Sue. And I really want to thank our AUW California communications team for all their hard work on helping us put this together and making it a success. So with that, we're gonna log off. And again, I invite you, I encourage you, I implore you, if you have any questions, let us know. Do not go into these meetings feeling intimidated, uninformed, unarmed, anything. Just, we're here to help. So take advantage of that offer. Okay, that's it. Thank you all. Oh, I did want to say, if you only did this training, this webinar, because you wanted to see what it was going to be like, and it might help you decide if you wanted to participate or not. If you've made that decision now that you do want to participate and you haven't done the survey yet, make sure you do the survey. You won't get any information. You won't be hooked in at all unless you complete that survey. So I think communications dropped that link into the chat room. So make sure you log on there and take the survey. That info then will come to me, and I'll know which team to assign you to, and then you'll get all the information that you need. Okay, that really is it. All right.